I love gambling, but somehow I always end up losing. Blackjack, poker, even some of the dumber online games. Because of this, I don't really gamble much anymore, except for sports betting. Now, if you don't gamble or watch sports, you could never understand the biblical high you can achieve by correctly predicting the outcome of a game and getting paid for it. But the one thing I could never do is hit a big parlay. Not some three-legger, favorites only, daddy's little princess parlay. I'm talking about a big, disgusting, uncircumcised 10-legger parlay that could only be crafted by a person with deep psychological problems in their childhood. So, like anyone with a gambling affliction, I decided to give it one more shot, but with a twist this time. Instead of placing one parlay on 10 games, I would place 100 parlays on 10 games. You know, trying to see if one of them could hit. Hopefully, I find some variable or variables that are consistent throughout the games that I can use in the future to gamble with, but I mainly just want to win my money. So the first thing I decided was the total amount. Since this was an experiment, I decided to only place $3 on each parlay, totaling $300. Even though the amount is low, the average payout with a wager of $3 on a 10-leg parlay, with each leg being a slight favorite, is about $1,924. Now, obviously, the closer all the games are to 50-50, the harder it is going to be for one parlay to hit. So we have to find the perfect balance of favorites and underdogs to make the parlays reasonable but also profitable. So once I decided the amount to wager, it was time to start identifying games to bet on. Now the NBA doesn't start for about another month and I don't know anything about American football, so the obvious answer was to go with soccer. Even with the downside, which I'll get back to in a second. Now at the time of recording, all the major leagues were on international break for World Cup qualifiers, so there were a few interesting matchups that had great odds. Other than that, I decided to use Premier League games since I'm very familiar with the teams and matchups, so I at least have more insight. So these are the 10 games I settled on. Some games like Brazil versus Chile are very straightforward. Brazil have been dominant in their games, have world-class players in nearly every position, while Chile have been struggling in recent years with inconsistent performances. Other games such as Bournemouth and Brighton feature double favorites, which is especially helpful when trying to make one of these profitable. But it also increases the difficulty of predicting the outcome since these teams are so evenly matched. Now, the first problem to consider is that from the time the bets are placed towards the last leg is a little over 3 weeks, which means there's plenty of times for new obstacles to arise. Injuries, internal conflicts, the team generally losing their form. But this wasn't the biggest obstacle in my opinion. You see, the total number of combinations in a 10-leg parlay is 1,024, meaning 100 parlays would barely cover 10% of the total possibilities. But this is only considering 2 outcomes for each leg, win or lose. But soccer is different from American sports in the fact that draws are possible. This takes the total number of combinations from 1,024 to 59,049 total possible outcomes. Now, covering 100 of those outcomes only represents 0.169% or less than 1% of total possibilities covered. Now, that number makes this task seem entirely impossible, but it's important to note that many of these outcomes are so unlikely they're not even worth considering. I asked my friend to model all 59,049 outcomes in a text document and it basically crashed my computer 3 times. But in the brief moments you can see it, you can see that many of these parlays only exist in very, very unlikely things happen. So if you remove the most remote possibilities, the total number drops down to 44,142 outcomes, which isn't a lot better, but I'll take what I can get. So now that we had the games chosen and the wager amount selected, the only thing left to do was placing the bets, which I decided to do on stream, twitch.tv/Hallis22 by the way, and let some of my chatters and friends also make some parlays alongside me.
So okay, like it's a really tight race.
Yeah, Colo can make a jump, Venezuela can make a jump. Ecuador's kind of on a bad form. 3 draws, but then 2 wins. Paraguay's much less consistent. I actually feel like draw might be the best option here. All right, Brazil versus Chile. Okay, great, same conference. Chile has no shot of making it.
Oh my god!
I don't think they have a single shot in hell of making it.
Dude, once you see Ireland squad, you're gonna second guess voting Ireland. I'm telling you.
Is Ireland squad that weak? Bristol City. Dude, one of your starters plays for Bristol the 3rd division. City? Dude, United fucking got knocked out by Grimsby Town in the Carabao Cup.
They blow, dude. They blow
so much. But they turn up against big teams. All right, Macy, you can either say the name of one of these teams, or you can say wheel spin, and then we will use the wheel to decide. Ireland versus Hungary. Ireland, damn. I have Tottenham. Ethan's got draw. Tottenham because my 8-year-old cousin likes them. Okay, tell your 8-year-old cousin to pick a better team. All right, Noya, your turn. I'm going to put the wheel away because I'm going to assume you don't need it because you're pretty confident.
He's basing off vibes.
I think Ecuador. Wow. Okay.
I mean, Ecuador's a good team, honestly. This
I'm so happy he said that too because now at least one of the first 4 parlays will survive. Brentford versus Chelsea. He says Chelsea.
Do you want to go with a coin flip one?
Ooh. You leave
Like
it up to God and
pure
shit.
wheel.
So if it says win, that means the first team wins. If it says lose, the first team loses. If it says draw, it's a draw, obviously. Armenia versus Portugal. Armenia to lose, so Portugal to win. So for the wheel, it's kind of just picking the favorites.
Yeah.
Well,
Hey, the wheel speaks.
The wheel speaks. The wheel speaks. All right, Man City versus Man United. Draw.
Holy shit.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it is. But also the wheel one was just completely
The
random.
wheel has more likelihood of being right than just picking.
Okay.
favorites. So we all made some predictions just based off our own intuition, and we had a few parlays laid out. Next up were the more difficult parlays. I started with some obvious variables such as expected goals, defensive records, and contextual facts such as teams not trying as hard since they've already qualified for the World Cup. I was able to construct the first 10 or so parlays with this, and then I moved to more complex formulas. Now, I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of math, so here's a timer on the screen, and when it ends, all the boring math stuff will be over, and we'll be able to continue the video as normal. The first model I used was the Poisson distribution method, which is a probability distribution used to show how many times a particular event will occur over a period of time. So by inputting the expected goals or average goals scored by a team for lambda, and plugging in the actual goals scored for x, we can model the most likely scoreline. This is actually how Sportsbook determined the over-under for various games. The second method is the expected goals model. Now this one is much more directed at offensive-sided football, and it's not that good in predicting draws. Basically, each shot I has a probability of going in based on location of target, angle, shot speed, etc. All of those probabilities are rolled within to expected goals. And when you compare the data against other teams, we can get a good idea of a scoreline. If the data is within an acceptable error range, a draw is determined. Now the third system is an ELO rating system. By building a rating system for all the teams in our group, we can determine the quality of a team and the strength of their opponents. Strictly sticking to recent game data and only focusing on teams in the Premier League, we can quantify the overall team strength and predict winners and losers when there's a large disparity. The final method is the Kelly criterion, which is a really good bet sizing formula. By determining the bankroll and decimal odds of a match, we can see where there's an edge in betting, essentially where it's better to place your money. But using this strategy, we are leveraging more return for our money but creating a weaker prediction. Now since all of these spit out static results, we won't have the benefit of changing based on new information. The results were recorded and then identical parlays were created with minor changes in certain results where the data was very close. So one result can easily become 10 to 15 parlays based on changing 1 or 2 match results. So the first game, Paraguay versus Ecuador, I decided to watch on stream, allegedly. I thought it'd be exciting since this matchup had some of the most even distribution of statistics. Since the teams performed so similarly, it made sense that win-lose-draw was almost exactly 33% across all 100 parlays. The downside of the game being so even is that means 66% of the parlays would lose after this first game. Now that seems really bad, but this is normal for highly contested games, which is why I sandwiched some of the more one-sided games in the middle of the list. Now, if I'm being honest, this game was probably one of the most boring games on the whole list. It was like watching 2 old people trying to find out how to fuck again. Bro, what are you doing? Jesus Christ. That was a great pass. Oh my god, first touch of a baby rhino. When it was all over, this ended up being a 0-0 draw, but that was somewhat ideal since draw made up around 34% of all the parlays. Game 2 was Brazil versus Chile, and interestingly enough, of the parlays remaining, not as many as you'd want had Brazil winning, just 20. But it was still a strong majority, and Brazil went on to do the most disgusting things I've ever seen done to a country. I like Oz guys. No, I like New Zealand guys. Yeah, Kiwis. Is that a slur? Oh my god, he slipped him in! So after that public flogging, we were sitting in a pretty good place with all the parlays. I felt that the picks had decent coverage over all the most likely options, and we even had some coverage over some unlikely options like Manchester United ever winning a game again. So after leg 2, we had about 20 parlays remaining. In the third leg, Portugal walked down Armenia 5-0, so nothing really exciting happened there. Portugal was chosen on the vast majority of parlays, so this game really didn't move the needle, but the win was essential so that we weren't down to 1 parlay after 3 games. Wow. Now the fourth leg is where things finally got interesting. It was Ireland versus Hungary, and I decided to go to an Irish bar near me to go watch the game with a friend. Now going into the match, the best result possible in terms of keeping the most parlays alive was Hungary winning. And I got my wish almost immediately. Within the first 15 minutes, Hungary took a 2-0 lead and were looking absolutely dominant.
God save the queen.
Yeah.
But in the second half, Ireland got off to a great start and scored a nice goal.
Insane Irish goal. Oh my god, insane Irish. Oh my god, Jesus Christ. It's 2-1.
A few minutes later, a Hungarian player got shown a red card and was sent off, and Ireland began mounting an assault. For 30 minutes, it was like watching Sunday League football. Poor tackles, missed passes, beers tossed on the pitch, but in the very last minutes of the game,
just one moment of magic, one moment of serious quality. McAteer now, Johnston thought about the shot. Manny with another cross. And it is 2-2! The 93rd minute! And this was his...
Those fuckers managed to score an equalizing goal, and it felt great butchering about half of the remaining parlays we had left. Now, legs 5 and 6 were relatively straightforward games, Bournemouth and Tottenham winning respectively. So, after the Tottenham game, we had 3 parlays remaining, but the one I was really hoping for was Parlay 41 to make it through. The reason was it ended with Arsenal beating another championship contender, Manchester City. Now, I've been an Arsenal fan my entire life, and we haven't won the league since I was 4, in the legendary Thierry Henry days. So what better way could the video end than my team beating another title rival and winning me a bunch of money? It was perfect. All that had to happen was Chelsea had to beat $2 billion team Chelsea just had to beat Brentford, some random mid-table team that lost their coach and their best players last season. We had an option covered for everything in the Manchester Derby and Arsenal versus City, which meant if Chelsea and Aston Villa won their games respectively, we were at like 45% chance of winning some money. But you know what happened in the Chelsea-Brentford game? The most disgusting long ball I've ever seen anyone make in a Brentford jersey put Kevin Schade or whatever the fuck through on goal, and he sniped it in. Distraught, anger, shame. These were all just a few of the emotions I was feeling after that first goal went in. I felt physically sick because in that moment with Brentford winning, everything was dead. We had no parlays remaining that had Brentford to win. So I desperately needed Chelsea to score a goal. And just when I started losing hope, I got a miracle.
CP is on the field! CP! They got CP out here! Oh my god!
That's right, folks. Ice Cold Cole Palmer, affectionately referred to as CP on the big screen, had been subbed into the game. Now, if you don't watch football closely, you don't realize how clinical and how clutch this player is. And a few minutes after he entered the game, he delivered in spectacular manner. So just like that, through the power of CP and his composure in the box, we were back in it. One parlay had Chelsea-Brentford at a draw. 2 of them had Chelsea at a win, and there was still time in the game for Chelsea to get a winner. And I was hopeful at this point.
Garnacho, opportunity to do something for his new club here. Plays it right in the middle.
God. Wait, hold on. It's still in. Oh my god! Oh my god! What a goal! Absolute belter into the side net in the 85th minute of the game.
What a fucking beauty. That strike was mental. Perfect shot, side net, cool, calm, collected as you like, and we were fucking back, baby. We got the exact result we needed from the game, and we were in a great position going into the last 3. But you remember how I said there was enough time for another Chelsea goal? It turns out there was also enough time for...
In towards Sanchez. Oh, look out! It's 2-2! It's Carvalho!
I don't want to watch anymore.
I was literally at a loss of all words. I have no idea how Chelsea's defense could be this shit. I could live 1,000 years and fuck up every day of my life and not deliver a performance nearly this bad. But it's fine, I guess. You know, big deal. We still had 1 parlay remaining, and I'm sure that the options on them were good. Let's take a look. Manchester City to beat United. Great. United have been in poor form and City have been finding goals in every game they play. Sunderland, Aston Villa draw. Well, that's not so crazy. You know, up until this point, Villa haven't scored a goal this season and Sunderland are a recently promoted side considered one of the weakest teams in the league. If they can hold off Villa's attack, we could steal an unlikely draw. But the last leg, Manchester City to beat Arsenal. My Arsenal, my boys in red falling short to these oil merchants. Part of me started to boil inside, but I tried to keep a positive attitude. It was 2 games before that game. Maybe it wouldn't even come down to Arsenal Man City. Now, City United was what some people consider a total fucking thrashing. I have some footage of the game, me celebrating a Holland goal.
Hold on, don't spoil it, don't spoil it. Dude, you're like a whole minute ahead of me.
But I think this photo sums up the game nicely. For those of you needing context, this is the best striker in the world. This is where he wants to go to score, and these are the people that are supposed to stop him. So yeah. Now, leg 9 in the second to last game on this list was the most nerve-wracking game of all of them. I felt like we needed an extremely unlikely result just to keep going. Sunderland ate a red card halfway through the first half, which meant they would slide their team back and hold a stronger defensive line. Since I was looking for a draw, I was perfectly content with 60 minutes of emotional terrorism that Sunderland and Aston Villa subjected the world to. Both teams poor in possession, no one creating any real threats, no big misses or chances, just felt like smooth sailing to me. Until this fucking guy, Matty fucking Cash. Just take a look at this. Bro, this fucking guy just smashes the ball from 30 yards out and buries it. It was a mental goal. I felt like a veteran watching Saving Private Ryan, bro. It was insane. Look at my face. I look so distraught. But less than 10 minutes later, the entire Villa defensive line fell asleep as the ball practically fell into Isidor's pocket and he slotted it home to bring the game level again. A few more minutes of pathetic attempts and the game was wrapped up, and I got the draw that I needed. That meant 1 game left. Arsenal versus Manchester City. Arsenal versus the team that has stopped us from winning the league 2 out of the last 3 years. And I needed Manchester City to win. I was actually torn. I didn't know who to support. I didn't know what I actually wanted to happen. If Arsenal won, it meant more likely that we would win the league this year and we'd finally get the result I've been looking for. But if City won, then I'd win the parlays and we'd make all the money back we spent on this video. I settled on the fact that the worst possible outcome is a draw. A draw means Arsenal draw points and all the parlays fail. So going into the game, I was just hoping that somebody would win. I decided to watch this game alone and off stream because I just wanted to watch the game and not have to worry about my reactions to anything. Even after the game had started, I couldn't really tell who I wanted to win. But I didn't have to wait long because in the 9th minute, the aforementioned best striker in the world was through on goal without anyone really able to stop him. And just like that, City took the lead. My heart literally sank. Yeah, City were up and the parlays were winning and I probably wasn't going to be down $300 in this video, but something just didn't feel right. And then things got even worse because Manchester City did what Manchester City never did. They parked the bus. They took off all their attackers and just put on defenders to hold the 1-0 lead.
Dude, they won't even come out of their shell. They're actually look at that line they're holding. That's insane.
As the game went on, I felt worse and worse, and I realized something. That winning is actually a word without a real definition. Because what does it mean to really win? Is it getting a lot of money from placing bets a month ago? Is it going out with friends and experiencing an exciting game with tons of twists and turns? Or is it watching one of your favorite players being subbed on in the last 5 minutes of the game and delivering one of the greatest chips you've ever seen in your life?
Oh shit, is Martinelli in? Let's go! Yeah! What a fucking goal!
So yeah, the parlays lost, and the result I said I didn't want most ended up happening, and I celebrated it like I won the lottery. But I learned something important about myself. I'll probably never end up winning a 10-leg parlay. But I think I'm okay with that. So if you watch this far and you enjoy the video, please subscribe to the channel. It tells me I'm doing something right, and it also feels good. Thanks for watching.